When Jesus receives no answer to the question, he takes a different tack. During dinner, he talks about the kingdom of God using multiple banquet metaphors. The invitations to and within the banquet take center stage in his message. The first metaphor calls all who come to the banquet to be humbled by the invitation, never to presume that the banquet has been given in one's own particular honor. Even if it has been, don't presume so. Luke's Jesus turns the tables, so to speak, in the next metaphor, positing a ludicrous idea that when one gives a luncheon or a dinner, they ought not to invite their friends. Perhaps he's trying to open up their eyes to the possibilities. Ought not to invite their friends? Ought not to invite their brothers or their relatives or their rich neighbors? Well, that's who you invite. Surely those folks will invite you to dinner or to luncheon in return. Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. This, by the way, is how God's luncheons and dinner parties are peopled. This is how God's banquets are most definitely for those who can never return the favor, like you and me. Jesus says, when you give a dinner party or a luncheon, one ought to invite people who can't repay them. Invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and then the host will be blessed because those invited can't return the favor. I think the dinner guest who pipes up and says, "Blessed is the one who will eat in the kingdom of God," or "Blessed is the one who will eat in the kingdom of God," yes, must have been in his cups or not listening. Maybe he always makes great empty platitudinous pronouncements. Like Jesus doesn't miss a step, however, and in my opinion, he goes straight for the jugular in response to that platitude with today's parable, using the image of the Pharisees' platitude. The parable recounts that someone gave a great dinner. This Mr. or Miss Someone invited lots of people. As was customary, someone sent out 2 invitations. The first to notify the invited guests that there was going to be a great dinner, and the second invitation by way of a messenger that the dinner was at last ready to eat. The first invitation was for the invitee to place in his or her former day BlackBerry as a reminder that they were in fact invited to the banquet that was going to happen on or around some day or sometime in the near future. The second invitation is issued on the actual day. Now, we are cautioned by the scholarly commenters not to be harsh on those who at the time of the second invitation reneged on their initial RSVP, accepting the invite. But the text says that when the messenger came to tell the invited guests that the great dinner was ready, they all alike began to make their excuses. Luke gives examples of some of the excuses which are considered quite legitimate, but what is meat here is that all of the invited guests made their excuses and gave their regrets. Although there are only 3 examples of excuses given, the text reports that all who were invited reneged. The NRSV translates the word orgiskein as angry. But perhaps a clearer image can be conjured up when the word is translated provoked, enraged, extremely angry, full of wrath. The host is enraged, provoked, extremely angry, full of wrath. The host of the dinner reacts dramatically in a moment, sending his slave to collect every outcast person of the city to come right now, to come this minute, and to accept the invitation to partake of this great banquet. Bring in the poor, bring in the crippled, and bring in the blind and the lame. And when they were all in their seats ready to eat, there was still room at the dinner. And so the banquet host sent his slave. I wonder, can you put a face on that slave? Can you put a face on that tired, exhausted servant messenger? He sent that slave to go out and get all the people, the street people, the homeless people, the drifters, the vagabonds, the muggers, the brigands, the thieves. Get everyone, compel all the people to come into my house so that it may be filled, so that no seat is empty. Have you put a face to that servant yet? Have you put a face to the one who is running around, giving out those invitations? You know, this party is exactly why the wedding caterers of today require everything to be paid in advance. They're not about to be left high and dry like this if the wedding is called off at the last minute with no one to eat the food they've prepared. Chapters 13 and 14 in Luke's Gospel are about change. They are about understanding the need for change.